Okay, so this is Cern Basher again. Some of you know him. I've had him on before. Some of you that are new, maybe you have no idea who he is. Cern Basher is what are you, sir? For a living, Cern Basher helps people with their investment decisions and hopefully causes them to make more money than they would otherwise. Outside of that, he's an athlete. Cern, would you consider yourself to be an athlete? Were you a professional cyclist or just a major amateur?
Um,
Did you get
well,
paid?
let's just say that I was an athlete at one point. It's been a long time now. I was more of a runner when I
Oh,
was an athlete than a cyclist. I am a cyclist now.
okay.
No one pays me to ride a bike at this point. I wish they did. Unfortunately, there isn't a Tour de France for old men.
There you go. There you go. They do have a triathlon for old men over
But
50.
that means you have to be a good swimmer, and I'm not.
I see. Okay, well, there you
I
go.
can run and bike. I've got two of the three.
So that's called a biathlon, isn't it?
Yes, or
Yes,
duathlon maybe,
duathlon. I can't remember. Yeah,
because
something.
the people with skis and guns, that their event is the biathlon.
Okay.
You don't want to upset them, Randy.
Oh, no, no. Yeah, all right. Okay. Having said all that, we have promised these people some amazing wizardry.
Yeah, well, let's talk about what Tesla's future might look like a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. And I produced a model that I debuted on Herbert's show last week,
Hmm.
kind of a quarterly model for Tesla, looking at how things might transpire over the next 5 years.
Okay.
And what I'd like to do today is use that model, but with some of the inputs that have been changed by you. So it reflects more your thinking than it does mine.
That's why you had me do that, huh?
That's right.
I see. I see. Okay.
There was a method to my madness.
Oh, not again.
Right. So this is what we're trying to get at. Over the next 5 years, what does it look like for Tesla? Right. And of course, please understand that we're looking at a crystal ball. We don't know. We're just making our best guesses, and none of this is financial advice.
There you go.
All right.
But Elon did make those comments.
Well, he did. And so here is from the earnings call. Let me just shrink this so you can actually read it. So I won't read this whole thing, but he says, it's setting up for what I think, this is Elon's words, setting up for what I think will be an epic 2026 and a ridiculous 27 and 28. Ridiculously good,
Ridiculous. Yes.
right? And he says, that's my prediction, is yet very few people understand the value of full self-driving and our ability to monetize the fleet. Okay.
Yeah. And I don't, try hard, to take victory laps. But 20 months ago, I started talking about 2026 was going to be the year when it all came together. I
Yeah.
had thumbnails that were just 2026.
And that's looking spot on at this point. And then more recently, Elon said this, um, that it will require outstanding execution, but I think more like 1,000% gain in Tesla in 5 years is possible. And he's referring to the expected profit growth, the net earnings of the company,
Right.
where this guy had him at Tesla growing at 258%, and Elon responded, no, it's more like 1,000.
Right.
And so I wanted to sort of check this statement against his other statements and try to quantify what an epic 26 is
Hmm.
and what is a ridiculous 27 and 28. So I built a model. And my conclusion was that this number is ridiculously low.
Yes.
Okay. And so we're going to use your assumptions and just kind of check that and see whether you agree with what I came up with. Okay. So these were the questions that I sort of set out to answer, right? Could Tesla grow its earnings by 1,000% over the next 5 years? Okay. And I said Elon's once again sandbagging the potential growth.
Right.
What does Epic 26 and ridiculous 27 and 28 mean?
Mhm.
When will the accelerated growth show up in quarterly earnings? Like what quarter actually could this happen?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what is the PE ratio today on the earnings 5 years from now?
Yeah.
Everybody's so focused on PE over the next 12 months. I don't care about that. I want to know what I'm buying today, what's getting me 5 years from now. Okay. And we saw in their previous show with Nvidia, people were able to buy Nvidia for about 2 times earnings 5 years ago.
If people can go back and look at that, it's really crazy that it was 2 times earnings
Yeah.
5 years ago.
So I call that hindsight PE. And with this one, I guess we can call it foresight PE. If the model turns out to be true, anywhere near true, what is that PE ratio today based on those future earnings? So let's see if we can answer that question.
Okay.
Okay. So here we go. This is navigational. Oh, I thought I resolved this.
You thought you had it figured out, and
There we go. No, I do.
you got it. You
Okay.
got it. Okay.
I do. Yeah, sorry. Bear with me.
We're
All
bearing.
right. So we've got some key inputs here in the model. Let's see here. Maybe this way. All right. Tesla has 5 business divisions. 3 of them are in operation today, right? There's autos in blue and red here, energy in green, and services and other in yellow or orange. There's also regulatory credits that they get here in pink. It's kind of a separate business line, but it's really part of auto. But people like to look at auto X, the reg credits.
Right.
So we want to model out each of these separately. And then in a second, we want to model out the 2 future businesses that Tesla has, Robotaxi and Optimus. So here are the assumptions, Randy, that you made in terms of the quarterly deliveries for vehicles. You've got a pretty terrible Q1 coming up for 2025.
Yep.
I hope it's not quite this bad, but who knows? It could be.
Wait a minute. Did I put 275?
You did.
Oh my.
Would you like to make a change?
I think that should have been 375, right?
All right. Well, look at this. We can change it on the fly as we go here.
There you go. There you go. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. So then, okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
And then you have assumptions for about what the average selling price is, and then the gross margin on the auto business.
Right.
Okay. Down here, by the way, are the annual numbers. So if people want to look at that, it's Randy's got an impressively high number for this year of 2.375 million, which you talked about on a video, I think, a couple of days ago.
Yes, I did.
So go listen to that one if you want to understand why Randy's at this number. My number is not this high, but I hope that Randy's right. I hope that I'm wrong. And then going out to 5.7 million vehicles by 2029.
Which is an extremely low number compared to what all of us were predicting just a year ago.
Right.
With a 20 million target for 2030, all of a sudden we're now looking maybe at a target of more like 10 million for 2030. Yeah, kudos to Gary Black. That's where he's been all along.
There you go. Yep. Yeah, so it's interesting what a sort of a pause or a slowdown and growth does for people. It resets expectations to much lower levels. It'll be interesting to see if Tesla can ramp up beyond numbers like this. And then energy deployments. You've got 66 gigawatt hours for this year. I think last year they did 37 and change, close to 38. So a healthy increase, and then 108 going up to 500, or half a terawatt hour.
And with Elon saying he was going to go for a terawatt, and we thought that was by 2030, but again, maybe that has been slowed down a little bit. We'll see.
We'll see. You've got average selling prices coming down. You've got margins at 25%. You've got the services and other business. This is supercharging. This is insurance. This is used cars. This is maintenance revenue at the service centers. Things like that are in this business. Not a big driver for the model, but it's in here. And then the regulatory credits, again, not a big driver for the model, but it's in here. This will go away one day. We don't think it'll go away in the next 5 years. It might, but it wouldn't be terrible if it did. And then the new businesses, the AI-powered businesses of Robotaxi here in blue and Optimus in yellow. The Robotaxi part, we've got 2 sides to it. We've got the Cybercab production, purpose-built Robotaxi vehicles versus the existing fleet of EVs that are out there that are owned right now by individuals. Right, and so both of these can go into the Robotaxi network. So in this column here, we're looking at basically CyberCAD production, assuming that every vehicle that's produced goes into the Robotaxi network. And so Randy has 70,000 for 2026, and then ramping up to a couple million, 2.4 million in 2029. And then you've got existing vehicles, 5,500 going into the fleet this year, and then ramping up to 3 million vehicles going in 2029. So total Robotaxi fleet of about 12.3 million in 2029. A combination of those two.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Optimus, we've got deployments, none this year. And then ramping up, so 95,000 in 2026, a million, 3 million, 7 million. So in 5 years, we've got 11 million Optimus in Tesla's fleet. And we're assuming robots as a service for this.
Very conservative.
Okay. And Randy has average selling prices starting at 120,000 and going down to 60.
Not selling price. This would be.
Sorry. Yes, revenue.
However you want to think. Yep.
Recurring revenue. Thank you, Randy. Yep. Recurring revenue on Optimus, 120 going down to 60, and profit margins reaching 75%, and profit margins on Robotaxi reaching about 70% as the network expands. Okay. Mm-hmm. So those are Randy's numbers. Let's take a look at what this does for the company in terms of total revenue growth over 5 years. And if you want, we can dive into each one of these individual models. But let me just show you for the total company, we're looking at a 12x increase in revenue. Okay. Now recall for Nvidia, what was that number that Nvidia grew revenue by over 5 years?
Oh, I can't remember. Sorry.
It was about the same. I think it was like 12.7.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So to forecast that for Tesla over the next 5 years isn't crazy. Nvidia did it on the strength of growth in AI. Mm-hmm. Tesla could do it on the strength of growth in AI.
Right.
But more importantly, again, if we're looking at the timing of this, so you've got a 29% increase in revenue for 2025, 50% for 2026, 86%, 112%, and then merely 60 5 years from now. These kinds of growth numbers, these accelerating growth numbers, would get Wall Street extremely excited if it panned out this way. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's just revenue. Let's look at gross profit. A 41x increase in gross profit over 5 years. 40% this year, 70%, 232% in 2027, and 193. So if Elon has run a model like this, I think these would qualify as ridiculously good. 27 and 28. And a 70% growth in 26 would be pretty epic. Okay, as would a 76% growth in 2029.
Sure.
Okay, that's just gross profit. Let's look at net income. 67x increase. Okay. A 1,000% increase in net income over 5 years that Elon talked about in his post. That's 11x.
Right.
Right. So.
Yeah. So we think he's sandbagging.
Yeah.
Because he's also talked about building 10 million bots in 2027. I mean, 1 million in 2027 and maybe 10 million in 2028. So that would be way more than I put in there.
That's right. Yeah. So.
And those numbers are not crazy.
No.
As we've now talked about with Lutz, and we've talked about with, so many different people now. This is Phil Beisel. These are more like building cell phones than they are like building cars. So once you've got the thing down and you maybe get a couple of plants open, you can ramp these things really, really rapidly and in a small footprint.
Yeah. Now you might say, okay, some of this will get delayed. And maybe so, but this is a 5-year projection. So as long as they get close to these numbers 5 years from now, this is the kind of gain you're looking at. Maybe it doesn't play out quite as well this year. Maybe this year is more flat.
Right.
Although I think on the strength of energy, I think it can be a decent year still for growth.
Mhm.
And if Randy's right about, auto production, being above 2.3 million, that would be incredible. Um, let's take a look though at the year-over-year growth. So this is looking again at net income. Now, where we sit is right here. This green bar is the quarter that we're in right now,
Mhm.
Q1 of 2025. You've got in your model, based on your assumptions, a 50% year-over-year net income growth. Okay. Now, I think in my model, it's not this strong in Q1. Okay. We'll see. We'll see how strong energy is. So that's kind of the wild card. Energy is kind of hard to predict quarter to quarter because of the lumpiness of that business.
Well,
Okay.
there's other things that I couldn't include in your particular revenue now the way that you did it, but I'm looking at potentially a lot of increased revenue from FSD uptake as well as recognition.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting. These are pretty good year-over-year revenue numbers or revenue net income growth numbers. If it transpired this way, if you had this kind of accelerating year-over-year net income growth, Wall Street would be frothing at the mouth with excitement,
Mhm.
right? Particularly if you got up to the, 200, 300% year-over-year
Right,
gains.
right, right.
Okay. Now let's look at quarter over quarter. Now in that case, this quarter is down.
Mhm.
Comparing Q1 to Q4, well, sure, that's kind of to
Right.
be expected, right? Q1 usually is a lot lower than Q4. And you can see historically there's are down quarters for Tesla. That happens, it's pretty normal.
Mhm.
But then you get to the point where almost every quarter is quarter over quarter up. And this is exactly the place that Nvidia has been now for the last couple of years. Every single quarter has been higher than the last.
Mhm.
There's a bit of an anomaly here in 2029. That's going to be a 50% drop in Tesla stock at this point, right? As everybody worries about whether the quarterly streak is over.
Yeah,
Um,
and again, people should know that my 2029 projections were on the fly
yeah,
and actually extremely conservative compared to compared to what it's likely to be. It's really going to be at this point all about Optimus. It'll have something to do with cyber trucks. I mean, sorry, with robotaxis, but it'll be mostly Optimus.
yeah. So if you believe Randy's model, then Q2 starts to get more exciting, and certainly quarter over quarter in Q4 and then beyond. So this period of massive growth appears to be coming for Tesla, again, based on these assumptions.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's the model's driven by that. Here's how it looks in terms of revenue. This is the quarter that was last reported, Q4. And you can see then the components of the business,
Mhm.
12.3x over 5 years. Here it is, if you look at it as on a percentage of revenue, you get to the point where it's kind of hard to see the auto business. It's down here at about 10%
Yeah.
by 2029. Now, again, this is revenue. What really matters is profitability. And so if we look at gross profit, it's a 41x, Robotaxi in blue, and then Optimus here in yellow. We seem to have an adjustment here to Optimus that probably needs to be looked at. I'm not sure what's driving that number in Q1 of 2029. That seems abnormally low given this. Anyway, and then here as a percent of gross profit, the auto business is getting to the point where it's de minimis.
Mhm. Mhm.
So does Tesla need to make 10 million cars? No.
Mhm.
If they make five or six by 2029 or 2030, that's fine. As
Mhm.
long as that's enough vehicles to feed the robotaxi business.
Right.
And then, of course, Optimus is an entirely new business line.
Right. Yeah.
These are the two that will drive Tesla over the next 5 years.
So to speak, drive. Yeah.
Pun
Our
intended.
Yeah, they'll be or they'll be self-driven.
Self-driven. They'll
Self-driven.
that'll self-drive Tesla over the next 5 years.
Here you go.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then from a
and
net income perspective,
yeah, and people are asking the question, why would Tesla sell any cars at a certain point? Why wouldn't they just put them all into the fleet? But I think, yeah, and that's actually it's really a good question, and I'm not 100% sure that we'll have a good answer until the market starts to develop.
the best answer I can come up with is a non-economic one,
Mhm.
and maybe one that's more politically defensible in terms of if you have a business that is so profitable, you're better off bringing in a whole ecosystem of people around you that benefit from it.
Yeah, that's for the Airbnb version of the Cybertruck, and
Cybercab.
I can understand selling it to other fleets better than I can understand it selling any to individuals for their personal use.
Yeah, I don't think so much for personal use. I think the expectation would be that you put it in the fleet and they're selling it to you for that purpose.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just saying, but our current model is suggesting that we'll still be selling these to people for individual use, and that it'll seem almost ridiculous if you can make twenty
yeah.
thousand dollars a year, why would you sell it for a one-time, profit of 7 grand or something?
Well, so an interesting thing happens, right? If every Tesla vehicle can be used for
Yes,
robotaxi,
right. Yes,
the value of those vehicles goes up.
right.
So we always talk about, okay, yeah, you can make a car for $20,000, but what is the value of that car?
Yeah,
Doesn't matter what you can make it for.
sure.
If that car can make $50,000 a year of net income,
Mhm.
it's worth way more than $20,000.
Right.
So that's where the market starts to bid up prices of Teslas.
Hmm.
Fleet operators buy these things by the millions,
Right.
and suddenly everybody else gets priced out. If you want to own a Tesla vehicle at some point, you're going to have to pay for it because as a money-making machine in the robotaxi network, it's worth far more than just you driving it around periodically.
And this is why my numbers for next year, one of the reasons why my numbers for late 2025 go so radical is because once Elon drives that vehicle from coast to coast while he's asleep, or reading a book or playing a game, getting better and better scores on his video game. Um, I think the entrepreneurs are going to sweep in and they're just going to buy up every car that they possibly can. I mean, it just makes so much sense.
Yeah. What happens is the value of every robotaxi vehicle goes up by a lot. And I did an analysis on this, I think probably a year ago, and you and I talked about it on your show.
Hmm.
And the value of every other vehicle that is a non-robotaxi vehicle depreciates that much more.
Right.
Because now you've changed the vehicle from being something that needed to be driven by humans
Mhm.
to something that's a money-making machine. So instead of depreciating, it actually appreciates up to the point where it's equal to sort of its revenue potential and profit potential.
Mhm. As Elon has said, overnight, the largest asset value appreciation
Yeah.
in history in a second.
Yeah. And I think we're going to see an interesting thing happen. Let's say, for example, robotaxi gets approved in Texas and California, and that's it for a while.
Mhm.
You're going to see a massive shipment of used Teslas from every other state to Texas and California
Yep.
because that's where the money will be made, right? And so as other states come on, then you've got the flow of Tesla EVs into those states to make money,
Mhm.
right? The idea is that capital flows to where it's best treated,
Mhm.
and the same thing with Tesla EVs. They'll flow to where the best opportunity is.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting thing to see what happens. But I think one of the things that it's becoming clear to me is that vehicle ownership, you're going to be priced out of that market.
Right.
Unless money is no object to you, it will not make any financial sense to own a vehicle at some point, probably in the next 5, 10 years.
Well, to own a self-driving potential robotaxi.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you'll be able to buy an ICE vehicle extremely cheaply
right.
because everybody will be just giving them away for their scrap value.
Right.
So let's talk about valuation of Tesla based on the assumptions in the model. So we know right now that Tesla's PE is pretty high, right? And let's say it's just using rough numbers, 125.
Mhm.
We would expect over time, over the next 5 years, for the PE to step down to some more reasonable number. And I use 50, and some people might take an issue with this and say, well, no, it should be more like 30 or 25. But you know what? At this point, Tesla is still a very high growth company. So, growing actually more than 50% a year. So I settled on 50.
Mhm.
If that's too high for folks, they can cut it in half easily. So the numbers that we're going to show for valuation, just cut them in half.
Okay.
Okay. So based on the model, based on this step down of PE over time, we get to a 2029 Q4 valuation of $31 trillion.
31 trillion was, so that would be about 10,000 per share.
Something like that. I think that's
Roughly.
right. If it's 3 billion of shares, yeah. Yeah. So again, don't fixate too much on this number.
Right,
It's based on the PE and it's based on the earnings in this quarter annualized times the PE.
Mhm.
Now, we all know that Wall Street pulls things forward, that they're going to be looking at this point what the expectations are for 2030.
Right.
That's not even in this model. So it's possible the valuation is very different from this, either positive or negative, depending on what the future looks from beyond here.
Sure.
But based on the model, the expectations would be that the valuation of the stock will go up over time pretty significantly to follow earnings.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. Now, let's put this aside for a second and say, okay, we can't predict what the market value of Tesla is going to be in 5 years. But if we take the earnings number
Mhm.
from the model
Mhm.
and we compare that to today's valuation, let's say of 800 billion-ish,
Mhm.
what is that PE ratio?
Right.
So like we did the hindsight PE ratio for Nvidia, now we're kind of doing a foresight PE for Tesla 5 years out.
Got it.
And so, Randy, any question, any guess on what you think Tesla's foresight PE is right now based on your model looking out 5 years?
I'll just say under 10.
How about two?
Okay. Similar to Nvidia.
Yeah.
And if you take half, if you took your statement and the profits were half of what we showed on that chart. No, the half was only on the PE. You were talking about having the PE, not having the
Yeah.
profit.
No, this
Oh,
is not impacted by that because
yeah,
we're
yeah,
taking out the PE assumption. We're just looking
right,
at your earnings number in Q4 of 2029,
right.
annualizing that and comparing that to the today's market value.
Yeah,
And what is the PE ratio? So it's about two.
right.
Yeah. Now, if you think that the earnings are overstated by 100% or by 50%, then the PE would be four today,
Right,
for example, if you
right,
change the assumptions.
right.
Okay. So just like we did with Nvidia, investors might be getting Tesla at an incredible deal right now
Mhm.
if we
Oh,
look at what the earnings power of the company could be 5 years from now.
and I would say that all of us believe that.
I think many of us do. Yeah, when we look at the company, when we build models, we do believe that Tesla is quite attractive, right? It remains to be seen what this hindsight PE will be, but it'll be interesting to revisit this 5 years from now and see what did we actually pay for Nvidia today? What could you have bought, Tesla today? What could you have paid for the stock? What kind of PE was it based on 2029 earnings?
Exactly.
That'll be really interesting to go back and look. Yep.
And we've talked about, I think you and I have talked about what will the consumer do who owns one. So I have a Model Y. It's got full self-driving. Somebody comes and offers me $100,000 for my Model Y. Well, I did a poll, and the number, even if a person could make $40,000, but they have no interest in turning it out into the fleet, and somebody comes along and offers them $40,000 over value, they'll take it
Yeah.
by and large. Yeah.
Yeah. The other force that's going to be at play here, and you and I have also done a video on this, is this idea of gas stations being forced out of business.
Right.
Now, the profitability of gas station is based on the convenience side of the shop, not selling gas, but the gas gets them into the store in the first place. So if you're in an EV and particularly a Robotaxi, there is no need to stop at these corner gas stations, right? And in fact, we'll probably see the infrastructure of gas stations to be more at, destinations or where people are going to be
Right.
rather than as they're passing by. Because you're not necessarily, most likely, you're not going to be instructing your Robotaxi to stop at the local Shell station, right? There's no need to.
Yeah.
And maybe there's even vending opportunities inside these Robotaxis at some point. Who knows? But as more miles are driven autonomously, therefore less gasoline will be sold. That turns the economics of gas stations on its head, right? And so you're going to see a massive reduction in the number of gas stations, the massive reduction in the availability of gas. So while you can buy an ICE car for next to nothing, where are you going to buy gas for it?
It'll become less convenient than it even is now.
Yeah. Right. And it's going to get progressively less and less convenient over time, and probably actually fairly quickly. You'll suddenly wake up and all the local gas stations are closed because the economics of that business gets turned on its head. So that's going to be an interesting transition as well. Even if automakers want to sell you a car, the practicality of owning one and putting gas in it is going to become more challenging.
Exactly.
Very quickly. Yeah.
True story. Yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
Now,
So
will it feel like it happened overnight? Probably not. It'll probably feel like it, happened over time. And we see when Radio Shack went out of business, they didn't close all whatever it was, 22,000 stores in one weekend. They had some stores that were still operating profitably 5 years after the first ones were being closed. But, so it's probably a 5-year, 7-year transition once it becomes, maybe starting in 27, 28, you'll see a very substantial number of gas stations starting to close. We did see this before, I don't know if you paid any attention to it, but when you went from getting 12 miles to the gallon to getting 25 miles to the gallon, you went from having a gas station on every corner to having maybe one gas station on the corner and another gas station a few miles away. So we've seen this transition once before. We'll see it again.
Yeah, no, we definitely will. The thing that I hope we don't see is a Tesla semi pulling a gas tanker.
You will. You'll see that.
Well, from an economic perspective, those refinery companies are going to want to use Tesla semis. Yes. Probably autonomous semis, by the way, to move gas, the remaining amount of gasoline that needs to go wherever it needs to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be a weird sight, though, won't it?
Very, very unusual sight. Yes. It'll be very interesting. Times are changing.
They are. Yep.
So people should buy Tesla stock.
I can't say that. I can't give financial advice. I'm not able to do that because everybody's situation is different, Randy.
That's true. That's true.
Right. So we can share information. This is educational content. This is just some rough projections. Please do your own homework.
It's just for your amusement.
For your amusement in our case, because we're such jokesters. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, that Cybertruck bottle opener that's behind your shoulder on the shelf, that is the best bottle opener I've ever had. It's such a weighty, solid bottle. It's unbreakable. There's no way that thing's going to break.
Yeah. Right? It's 9 ounces. I mean, it's a crazy thing. Yeah.
So not to completely change the topic on you there, but I noticed that. I keep noticing that.
Maybe somebody will buy one. The information is in the description below. Yeah.
They really should. They really should. It's an amazing bottle opener. Yeah.
And I don't know this from my own knowledge, but I understand that CERN's pretty good at helping you with your investments as well. He's actually helped a couple of friends of mine. They asked me a question that I couldn't answer, and I sent them to CERN, and apparently he had some real good advice for them with regard to retirement, taxes, and whether to put stuff into a IRA or Anyway, something about that.
All that complicated stuff.
All that
Yes.
complicated stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Cern, as always, I appreciate you coming on with these wild and so, that I think that spelled it out. If people don't get it from that, at least with regard to what the future might bring. I'm not sure what we need to do to make it clear. It was even in color.
Yeah, and I think this show, in conjunction with the previous one, where we talked about NVIDIA's experience and what's coming for them,
Right.
NVIDIA is in their Robotaxi moment right now, and they are quickly approaching their Optimus moment,
Yes.
right? And so Tesla is not too dissimilar. They have both of those just ahead of them, just around the corner. We don't know exactly when that will start to happen, but you can see by the model with the assumptions that you made, exactly when it does happen.
Right.
And so, put your own assumptions in and you can see it's not as far off as you might think, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, yeah, and everybody already knows my opinion. It's the end of this year is when everybody will recognize what's coming and will start bidding up the stock prior to the 2026 epic year.
And then it's going to get ridiculous.
Thanks again, Cern. And to all of you out there, I hope you have a ridiculous spring since we're recording this on the first day of spring. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks, Randy.